Hey everyone, you're watching We Live in Color with Deontay Damper, right here on Converge Media. Now before we begin, I need you to like, share, and subscribe to Converge Media because I'm telling you, we have a lot of things going on. From the Day with Trey, to the Art of the Matter, to of course, clapback culture, and of course back to Besa. We got it here, locked in on Converge Media. Now before we begin with the show, I want to talk to y'all a little bit about heroes. Heroes wear many capes, and I'm not talking about Batman, Superman, or Wonder Woman. I'm talking about the ones here in Western Washington that are continuing to educate and protect and build our community. My next guest is one of those heroes. I want to welcome Programs Director for Pocan, Ernest Walker.
All right, all right. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I'm so happy to have you here because you're a hero, of course, in community, and your journey with fighting against stigma and fighting, when I'm saying fighting HIV, I'm saying advocating to make sure that not only community members are being educated on HIV, but also knowing that they could be a part of that change. So I'm really thankful for the work that you've invested in this community.
Thank you, thank you.
Now well, take us through the journey of you working in community, because you're from Seattle. You didn't go to Rainier Beach, did you?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that for the cameras, that he did not go to Rainier Beach.
Bulldog Nation, let's be clear. I am a Bulldog.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your childhood here.
I think I had a really, really good childhood. I had both parents in the household. Father was military. You know, my mom was a stay-at-home mom throughout most of my younger years, and then when my father retired when I was in the 8th grade, my mom said they could not work together and be together all day, every day together. So she went back to work. But it was great though. I think, I had siblings who were into sports and, into higher education. And so I had a lot of support as a child. But even though I was the youngest of 11, I felt like I was the middle child and the oldest of 12, because my parents also raised like the first 11 grandchildren, right?
Wow.
So I was the baby, but I became the middle child.
Okay.
Right? But Seattle was amazing for me. I had a chance to, really see a lot of things throughout my tenure here in Seattle, with going to Garfield, which was amazing. I ran track, played basketball. I was All-American here in Seattle. And then, I got the opportunity to be on a traveling team. So I got a chance at the young age to see, a lot of the country, traveling to the different states every year and every summer to do track and basketball tournaments, but also traveling overseas, being on the traveling team. We went to China. I got a chance to go to Japan. So I got a chance to go to a couple of places that normally, the average kid my age wasn't, going and having those opportunities.
And being able to reach those opportunities, you said something about discovery. So how did you discover your queerness during that time, or did that happen later?
No, it was definitely during that time. I mean, I always knew that I liked guys. It was like, I always knew that. So it wasn't it wasn't no shock to me, that that was a thing. I mean, it was a shock to others, but I don't see why. I mean, how, I always had a lot of female friends. Those were my friends, right? Those were, my male friends were because I was great at sports. So they want to be on their team, right? But most of them, were just in my corner because I was good at sports. But my female friends were really my girlfriends I hung out with, and really got a chance to really understand and be who I wanted to be around them, because they made me feel comfortable about who I was, opposed to the judgmental thing.
And being around a big family.
Yeah.
Being the middle child, right?
Yeah.
How receptive were they with it?
Well, my sister is a lesbian, and she's out, and she, she was an LSU All-American, still the leading scorer and basketball player for LSU women basketball. So it was like she kind of paved the way. Like, she got the blunt of most of the things from my father, and my grandmother around. That's not right, and that's not God. Like, those types of things, beating folks up with the church, right? And so, but ultimately when I came around, it was my aunts and my sisters who really helped me feel more comfortable about who I was, and then just, not hide who I was. I never had to hide who I was.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think I want to talk more about you not hiding, because I think that, as I said, heroes wear capes, and your cape and the history of how you got your powers is a lot of the story, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a lot about that in a minute. We're just going to take one quick break. You're watching We Live in Color.
Looking for laughs? Looking for love? Fast Talking Figaro has got you covered. Toe-tapping melodies, lively staging, and colorful costumes. Don't miss The Barber of Seville, May 4th through 19th at McCaw Hall. Tickets at seattleopera.org. Ballet's greatest comedy, Coppelia, returns to Pacific Northwest Ballet. Perfect for all ages, Coppelia delights with dazzling dancing and magnificent music played by the PNB Orchestra. Seven performances only. Visit pnb.org for tickets.
Hello, welcome to Elite Insights with Carlos Imani. We're looking to offer an in-depth look at event production industry through the lens of client experiences and joint successes. The podcast will emphasize guest interviews, focusing on client, discussing their fields, and reflecting on their collaboration with Elite Collective. Again, you're with Elite Insights. Carlos Imani here. I'll see you guys in a few.
The importance to share the history of the Buffalo Soldiers of Seattle and Buffalo Soldiers of everywhere, including cowboys and cowgirls of color everywhere, is really important because most likely they're forgotten. It's important that they're acknowledged, especially for girls like me who look up to them.
At a rodeo, it's got an impact on people when they see somebody doing something like that, especially a person of color, you know what I mean? It's got a big impact on people, I think.
Representing the Evergreen State, I am your Miss Teen Rodeo Washington, Jessa Thomas. Welcome to the Windswept Farm.
And we're back with We Live in Color. I'm here with community superhero, director of programs, Ernest Walker.
Hey, hey.
So we were talking during the break. So in 2000, you moved to LA.
Yes.
Okay, and you moved there for track?
No, I moved there for work.
Okay.
I moved to get away. My parents were like enablers. And so I watched them enable, my siblings, right? Some of my middle siblings and my older siblings, right? And then that's how we got stuck with the children. I'm gonna say we because I became the parent, right? Because they were my nieces and nephews, but they became my little brothers and sisters because we were raised in the household. So I moved because I started to become that enabler myself. And I was like, I wanted something different for myself. So I said, let me move to LA to see if I can live away from my family. Even though I had my aunts and uncles and my cousins who lived in LA, we weren't as close, right? So it was perfect. I moved to LA, I was like, oh shoot, I can do this. And I went where I really wanted to live, and that was to DC. I moved to DC in 2002, December of 2002, and it was over from there. Like, Black people everywhere, right? Doing everything right. And I'm talking Black gay people, so it's like, I'm excited. It's almost like having those strict parents and then you get to go to college. The sky is the limit and you got a smorgasbord. So, it was just, oh my goodness. It was amazing. It was amazing. I got a chance to get, to continue my HIV prevention work, working for Helping Us in DC, where I was under the tutelage of Dr. Ron Simmons. Over the years, I just learned so much from the man, right? He was an activist, he stood up for, what was right, and he didn't have a problem with calling people to the table and saying, there are things that are happening in our community and we're ignoring it, or you're not putting money behind it to support it, but your mouth is saying you are, but the money's not saying it, right?
Yes.
And so, you know, doing HIV prevention and work, and then, you know, really falling in love with self, right? And then falling in love with self and sex, right?
Yeah.
And so it became a big thing, you know, and then, you know, being that individual who finally fell in love and then get your heart broken, then become vulnerable, right? My vulnerability, you know, I put myself in situations that weren't always the best for myself, right? This is going to be my first time really just telling my story in public, right? I never hid it, but I never told it because no one ever asked, right? You know, so being vulnerable and having your feelings hurt and feeling like you weren't loved or worthy, you know, just because you do this type of work doesn't mean that you're not vulnerable, that you don't feel the same thing that people that come in and seek support and services from you feel, right? So I felt that, you know, and I put myself at so many risks, you know. So, you know, testing positive in 2004 was like an eye opener for me, right? It was like, wow, I did exactly what I was trying to get people not to do, right? And then it took me a while to really just come comfortable and okay with myself to say, but you're no different from them. You know, so why would you think that you couldn't catch this when you're doing the things that they were putting themselves at risk? You did the exact same thing, right? And so I was able to really start, you know, thinking about how do I see myself in a lens of, now you have something you can't get rid of, and now how are you going to deal with it, right? And so I start living by, it's living with me, I'm not living with it.
Yes.
Right? So HIV is really one of those taboo things that you couldn't talk about. I remember calling my sister and we kept missing each other. And the first thing she said when she called me back was that, you know, you're sick, aren't you? And I was like, what do you mean you're sick? She's like, you're HIV positive, aren't you? She was like, you never do this. You never call me back to back to back to back and saying you need to talk to me. And so, you know, she was like, I'm not going to tell my mom, you know, I'm not going to tell mom, you know, yada, yada. So she calls my other sister. So, you know, in Queens of Comedy, when Miss Laura gets on the phone and she called one number and all her sisters' phones ring, I got all my sisters.
Oh, wow.
They're all on the phone like, you're strong. We've dealt with so many things in our family. We got your back. Don't worry about it. Then here come my mom. I thought y'all wasn't gonna tell her. So they told my mom. But that's really what really set me apart from really understanding this. But how I got into this work was when I was a senior in college, my cousin contracted HIV in the Air Force. And he had disappeared and we couldn't find him. And so, long story short, he was in Turkey, got shot. And they had him in a military hospital in San Bernardino, California. And he was gone for so long, we didn't know what had happened to him. So when we found out, you know, where he was, we finally got a chance to go see him. And then we found out at that time he was HIV positive, and this was in the late 90s, right? And so he wound up, you know, getting the worst care in the military hospital. He was always shitty and pissy. They weren't taking care of him. The nurses were scared to touch him, right? They were scared to take care of him. And so we watched him just like, you know, die right before our eyes with no support other than what little we had and what little we knew about it. We didn't know much about it then. You know, it wasn't heavy into the Black community because we were saying that was a white boy disease, right?
Yeah.
But yet all of our friends around us was catching it and dying from it. And so, you know, that's what really made me get into that work. And then that's when I came back to volunteer at Spokane.
And now here we are, 20 years later, right? And now you're working in the areas of director of programs of Spokane. Are we still missing the mark? Where are we with supporting Black communities in the areas of HIV care?
I think we're still dealing with this stigma thing. You know, stigma's been killing us from the beginning of time, and we still have never figured out how to fight it, and, you know, and how to overcome it, right? And then also how to support each other, right? The biggest challenge we face is that our community will not get behind each other and support each other for what's right. It's always about what can I get, or what you're doing for me, right? Not saying HIV is plaguing our community, COVID was plaguing our community, monkeypox plaguing our community. What are we going to do as a community to get together to fight back, to say these dollars don't match this epidemic in our community? You know, Blacks, youth, Hispanics, of color, all of us are carrying the burden of this virus, and we get a third of the money.
Yeah.
But we carry 80 to 90% of new infections, right? And so it's really difficult. And so the mark is missed where, you know, there's no equitability around how do we get the funds to address these issues so that we can do community mobilization stuff, so that we can do billboards and ads so that people can see these things. But those things cost a great deal. They're not giving away anything for free anymore.
Yeah.
And so really the funds aren't behind it.
And the stigma's still there, right?
And the stigma is still there.
One question that I do have to ask, just for our viewers, just so they know, right? And I know the answer, but I just want to ask you, is HIV a gay man's disease?
No, absolutely not. It's not a gay man's disease. It's anyone that's having unprotected sex or injection drug users, you know? Anybody that is vulnerable and is having unprotected sex or sharing needles are susceptible to this.
And that's important.
And that's important.
And we're going to get on to some of the solution-based programs that Spokane has available and the great things that you're doing when we come back. You're watching We Live in Color.
Looking for laughs? Looking for love? Fast Talking Figaro has got you covered. Toe-tapping melodies, lively staging, and colorful costumes. Don't miss The Barber of Seville, May 4th through 19th at McCaw Hall. Tickets at seattleopera.org.
Africatown Plaza is our latest affordable housing development project. It's 126 units of affordable housing over community commercial space.
It's the first time in my career, and I've been doing this for 10 years, that I was able to design for people who look like me.
Africatown Plaza is a beacon of hope.
Africatown Plaza is a love letter to the community.
One in every 500 African Americans in the U.S. suffers from sickle cell disease. 1 in 3 African American blood donors is a match for patients with sickle cell. 1 appointment to donate blood with the American Red Cross can help save a life. Will you be that one? Visit redcrossblood.org/ourblood today to schedule an appointment at a location near you.
Here on Back to Basa, it's always been important to me that we uplift stories from across the region, and that no matter where you live in the nation, you never have to miss a moment of the show as we continue to highlight the beauty, excellence, and resilience of our communities across the Pacific Northwest. Why? Because representation matters. So no matter where you live, be it the Central District or Centralia, Portland or Pullman, or anywhere across the country, I encourage you to join me on this Back to Basa journey by downloading the free Fox Local app on your phone or smart TV as we continue to elevate the very best in our communities.
Big Tobacco thinks they know everything. They think they know you, your community, the places you go, the way that you spend your time. They think they got you all figured out, down to a formula, a calculation based off of numbers of what they think they know. Show them they're wrong. Learn more at theythinktheyknowyou.org.
And we're back. You're watching We Live in Color. I'm here with Director of Programs, Ernest Walker. Now, Ernest, speaking of programs, you are now at Spokane. Mm-hmm. Tell us the programs that are available there and what you do there.
So I oversee all the programs that has to do with supportive services at Spokane. And so the supportive services really look like, you know, what is it for Black folks that we need to provide support from? We have a homelessness program where if you're 24 and under and or someone in the household is a child that's 24 and under, we can provide services to help you not to become homeless, right? So that means that you're in your own apartment, you're struggling with some things, we can help pay some of this stuff and really help you, get some stable and stability, right? We have a senior mobile medical unit where we go out and provide medical services at the senior citizen centers and in some of these communities where the underserved seniors aren't being medically dressed, right? We have a PrEP clinic, right? So anyone who wants to get on PrEP, and I mean anyone that wants to get on PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylaxis, where this is the drug that will stop you from becoming HIV positive if you come in contact with it, right? And then, we also have medical providers now that actually are providing medical services. So Black people serving Black people, right?
Love it.
We actually have services where people who look like you are providing those services for you, right? We have another testing unit where it goes out and do HIV testing and STI screening out in the community, right? I tell folks all the time, one of the best things you can do in your community is to get involved and know what's going on in your community. If you think that these things are getting done by just us doing the work, you're sadly mistaken. It's getting done because community is getting behind us that's helping us getting the work done. We might be the vessel, but guess what? We need folks to get on the vessel and help us do this work. So whatever it is in your community, if it's community beautification, right? If you want to see your community get, back to the way it used to look, get on those committees that'll help do that, right? There are things that in your community, there's always community meetings. Go to the community meetings. Know what these folks is voting on in your community and voting you out of because you ain't in these meetings. Right. I remember when back almost 30 years ago when they said 23rd and Jackson was going to turn into a 2-lane street and we're going to add bright lights. I remember that going to those meetings, right? And we was like, no, we don't need that. We need 4 lanes, 2 lanes on each side. This is a community. Lo and behold.
Because we worked together. Yeah. Because we worked together and we heard each other. And your legacy, I say heroes, I've never started to show up with like that. Heroes wear capes, and I really appreciate the work that you've done. We do what we call Hero We Live in Color tribute. Mm-hmm. So many people have helped us get our capes.
Yes.
Who is that person for you?
That's interesting. I think my sister helped me get my cape.
What's
because
her name?
Her name is Shirley Walker Roten. She was a single mother at 10, in the 10th grade, to go off to college and get a degree and come back and start working in the school districts with youth, right? This is what she always wanted to do. She had a criminal justice degree, right? And she in the school districts doing family support work stuff, right? Helping these families really learn how to deal with their kids at home after coming from school. Right? How do you have that school-work balance, right? And a lot of parents don't have it because they're struggling so hard. And so what she tries to do is help ease those pains. And so I saw myself really going into those types of things, right? I know that I'm a community person and being around tons of nieces and nephews that I helped raise, right? It was one of those things that I know that some type of social type services I was going to be a part of. And Pokane just really hit the mark for me because I loved what they were doing and what they were about when I first started working for them in 1998, right? Mm-hmm. And then to leave and come back, to see how it just evolved in the evolution of Pokane. It's something to be proud of.
And we are proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We here at We Live in Color would just love for you to just look in the camera and give your call to action to community right here.
Yes. My call to action to the community is, look, you all got to get involved. We're losing folks. This gun violence is getting out of hand, right? This human trafficking is way out of hand. This homelessness in our city is out of hand. You got to go to these city council meetings. You got to get involved, and you dang sure got to vote.
I know that's right. I thank you, Ernest.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for being a part of this legacy and paving a way for people like myself and others that are working out here. We have our capes because of people like you.
Thank you.
Thank you for helping us live in color. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you, community. That's another episode. We appreciate you for helping us live in color. And we're watching people living in color right here in the Black Media Matters studio. Join us next week with our next guest. You are watching We Live in Color. Hey everybody, Deontay Damper. To learn more about our blog posts, community events, and more, go to whereweconverge.com.